welcome to Evil Dread. I'm Wyeth,
And I'm Lynn.
and today we have a very special guest, one we've been hinting at for a long time.
Well, not even hinting at. I'd say.
I would say flat out acknowledging.
Absolutely. Hello. That's sensual, velvety voice belongs to Anna Louise, our own Kathleen Turner.
Our future doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
Wyeth's GF.
Yes.
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 And this week we finally answered the question. Y'all ready for it?
Stop. Did you prepare that for this?
I've been waiting to say that.
It didn't translate well on Facebook either because there wasn't a.
No. It needed that music to play as soon as people
definitely.
read it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we saw it.
It was a lot.
It was so much.
This was probably the first movie in a long time that I remember being so excited about and just kind of counting down the weeks for it.
This is one of the biggest horror movies that I can't of recent memory.
Yeah, I think this you don't get a lot of horror blockbusters, or especially ones that had such good buzz and good reviews. I mean, The Conjuring original movie, maybe.
That kind of came out of nowhere, it felt like.
Yeah, it was a sleeper hit, but this one you could tell they
was hyped.
Yeah, this one they put a lot of studio money behind it and a lot of advertising dollars.
It's very much a tentpole movie.
Yeah, which is amazing. And weirdly it's because it's has such a wide mass appeal, I guess, for something that is
and for a hard R.
Yeah.
Movie.
Oh, yeah.
Very hard.
Hard.
Yeah, very hard.
How hard?
I mean, are we playing match game right now?
Stop.
But yeah,
I'm so glad I could finally be on your podcast
to tell you to stop.
Stop.
I feel like you just constantly say that to yourself when you're listening to our
When
episodes.
we're not recording, this is what me and Al do to Wyatt. This is just
it's a real peek in. It's a real window.
Yeah.
into
the reality.
The dynamics.
Yep.
Of the trio, the Children of Thunder. But yeah, I loved it.
I loved it too.
We just saw it, by the way. We went out to dinner and we were like, okay, embargo, we can't talk about this over dinner. Right after seeing the movie, we got to save it for the cast. So
we ruminated on what we just watched.
So I guess first reactions.
Weirdly enough, I didn't like this movie as much as I was expecting, but in other aspects, I liked it more than I was expecting.
Okay, you really, you led us down a path with that statement. Please untangle it, please.
I was expecting to really like the look at the kids' daily lives more than the horror aspects, but I ended up liking the horror scenes more than the regular kids scenes.
I love the kids scenes. It was just my favorite part. Absolutely. What do you think?
Yeah, I liked it. I don't know that I liked it maybe as much as you guys. I thought it was good. I don't know. I'm ready to see chapter 2.
See,
I guess.
That's one thing I'm kind of nervous about, because the thing I liked most was kind of the childhood friendship, nostalgia kind of thing, and the kids were really charming and sweet and funny, and there was a lot of heart to it. So I don't know how that'll translate in the second one for me, because the second one is going to be 27 years later when they're 40, and I don't know if they can recapture the magic I found in this one.
Well, I don't think they necessarily have to, because in the book, when they're all grown up, they've all gone separate ways, and so in that book, chapter 2, the chapter 2 movie will be them awkwardly reconnecting and be like, hey, remember how you used to be? Just kind of now when we see people from our hometowns,
which is something I hate. I'm sorry, I can't get excited about seeing that play out.
Okay, that's fair.
But I love this one. I mean, I think it does a disservice for me to be I don't know how the sequel will be, but this one was great, I thought.
I mean, I wish the sequel was coming out next week rather than waiting for it.
Oh, they haven't even announced cast.
Yeah.
Which is something we were discussing at dinner. We did allow ourselves to discuss that, who we would cast for these older kids. and we can come back to that later, I guess, when we explain. So, plot overview, someone?
Yeah, I guess we should go ahead and say at this point, we're about to spoil all of it, including the book.
The book has been out for a while.
To this.
So
they expect nothing less, I think. But yeah, centers on Derry, Maine, small town in 1989 instead of 1958, which the original one was set, the book. So it's a bunch of kids, and it starts out with the like super well done scene of Georgie, this little boy. His brother Bill makes him a paper boat, and Georgie goes out in the rain and plays with it, and it goes down a sewer, and that's when we first encounter Pennywise the dancing clown.
Who I think we need to say right off the bat, like, I loved Bill Skarsgård
as
Pennywise.
He was wonderful. Like in such a. I read a review from one of my favorite horror bloggers on Tumblr. His name is Brundlefly for a white guy. He's amazing.
That's a great name.
But he made a comment where it was like, it was clear that this wasn't just a guy playing a clown. It was something evil pretending to be a clown rather than the opposite. I get like you could tell that it was off a little bit, and like his speech patterns and like how his eyes looked, you could tell like it was more of a mask than anything.
Like, yeah, he definitely got the physicality down.
Yeah.
I wasn't really into the movie, I'll be honest, until they went into the house as a group, and Pennywise really, like, that was the first time where Pennywise really featured heavily on screen. And that's what I just remember sitting there just smiling at how.
Do you remember it? Do you remember
I remember it all 3 hours ago.
As though it was this very night.
It was just like hilarious and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, that was something like Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise is so over the top. It was like kind of like shockingly funny to like some of his mannerisms to watch, and then like it would turn into fear. Like it like went from funny to scary.
Yeah, like in one scene he would be waving with a child's decapitated hand, and
which was funny.
Oh my god! And then in another scene, it's just like super evil.
Yeah. So yeah, all these. So basically, going back to the beginning, Georgie gets his arm ripped off and dragged into the sewer.
Oh, you see it. And yeah. I was surprised, because like killing kids is still pretty taboo, even in horror movies.
God, what are we gonna do about that?
What?
I'm kidding. You said it like, it's still pretty taboo to just kill these children in these movies. God, why won't people just buck up and?
They did get the world's cutest kid to play.
Oh, he was so sweet.
He was adorable. It was very sad to see
that was a very wretched scene.
Yeah. So he goes missing, he's dead, but he goes missing, and his brother Bill is kind of the only one holding the candle that he might still be alive, and he's still trying to find him while his parents are just, giving up. And so many other kids have gone missing as well. So they know something's up. And kind of one by one, Pennywise starts appearing to them, either in the clown form or as their greatest fear.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool, because, like, I didn't know, I haven't read the book, but I've, like, read the plot summary and everything. And in the book, he appears as all these different, like, horror icons, which is really cool. But, yeah, I thought that was a great way to develop character, I guess, because as we were talking at dinner, like, it's a bunch of little brunette boys. Okay, how do we make them unique personality-wise? And I thought that was a good one.
Yeah, I think the film did a good job developing these characters so that they didn't just form one mass of children.
Particularly because in the book it's all POV chapters.
Okay.
So not like first-person POV, but like you spend time. Yeah, you spend time in each of the kids' heads. So I was kind of concerned about how they were going to be able to do that on film. But yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
The only two I think got a short shift, I guess, was well, Stan was kind of underdeveloped for me a little bit, and then Ben and Mike.
Oh, I was just about to say, like, Mike, we could have used, like, another 30 minutes of like, Mike development.
He doesn't even show up with the Losers Club until over halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
Which was, kind of sucks because he's the only black cast member, and I thought that would be a really interesting perspective, especially when it was set in 1958, but, 1988, things weren't, great race relations-wise either.
Yeah, I was hoping for more of, like, commentary about that horror, the race horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how did you guys feel about them moving it to the 1980s, I guess? That was, I would say, maybe my biggest problem with
Really?
it. Yeah.
How so?
Because I don't see why they had to do it, aside from one running gag that I loved a lot, I will say. But aside from putting Batman on the movie marquee or whatever, like having a joke tossed off about Molly Ringwald, it seemed like a lot of the stuff that was inherent to the novel is very 1950s based, much like a lot of Stephen King's stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't really see why they did it.
Yeah, I can see that, especially with Mike, because it was so, like, from what I gather, like, his perspective was so tied to, like, how the black community was treated in that town. And they reference the Black Spot, which was like a club that was burned down in passing, and it was like a African American club.
The movie just skipped right over that. They got one sentence for that, more or less. In the book, Mike's fear is actually Rodan. Am I recalling that correctly?
What is that?
Rodan is one of the major, like, Godzilla monsters.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think they could get the rights for that.
Well, going back to what you said, Len, I think I was a little upset. I think they underserved Stan a bit.
Yeah.
They really just sort of made it about, like, did we mention he's Jewish?
Yeah.
Here he is wearing a yarmulke. Like,
he has to do his bar mitzvah soon.
Yeah. So, but, like, in the book, he he's a little bit more developed. He has more agency, and he's less, like, particularly towards the end, he gives off a vibe of being, like, kind of cowardly and standoffish from the group, which is not how the book is at all. But I can kind of see that maybe they were trying to set it up for the sequel where he doesn't come back as an adult to town. I don't know. Maybe they were just like, well, if he's not going to come back to town as an adult, we don't really need to develop his bird watching habit, for example.
I would have loved to see that. That's
because that was his big fear. It always turned into a giant bird.
Oh God! Right. Well, yeah, I was wondering where his fear came from. It was like a painting in his father, the rabbi's office, of, like, a surrealist woman playing a flute. And, like,
that felt like the least developed fear.
It was so goofy.
Yeah, like, because they made it up.
She just had she was kind of a scary looking lady who,
like, she sort of just was like a Modigliani, like, lady with a long neck and, like, white eyes.
Yeah, and she played the flute. And so, like, Stan, at one point, he's, like, in his father's office the first time it happens, and he's, like, he hears something behind him, and then it's... and he, like, freaks out, and I'm like, dude, that is, like, someone's playing the flute behind you. That's not scary. Okay.
Well, going back to your comment about the 80s, like, I'm okay with the 80s, but I kind of would like to...
Would you say you love the 80s?
I do love the 80s.
Those are my favorite shows again. I'm sorry.
The pick kind of the whole switch to the 80s feels like it's riding this wave of nostalgia.
Yeah.
Like everything from Stranger Things, or how there's a lot of, like, retro soundtracks for movies now.
I feel like, because I don't know what the creative differences Cary Fukunaga had or whatever, but I feel like once Stranger Things came out last year, they retooled the movie.
Absolutely. I believe that.
Because that was such a hit. Also, they cast my little baby boy.
They did.
Finn Wolfhard.
Yeah.
If you don't know what I look like Finn Wolfhard as an adult woman.
But yeah, I would have liked to have seen, like, because the 50s has that cliche of, like, the atomic family that's squeaky clean.
Yeah.
And like, the white small town, everything's idyllic and perfect. I would have liked to have that, but there to be, like, a real horror beneath it.
Which I think is sort of the point of the book.
Yeah.
Right? That it's, like, a very idyllic, picturesque town. Because so many of the adults, all of the adults really, just choose to ignore everything sort of questionable or horrific that happens in it.
Which is super compelling. And I mean, kind of going wider, I think 50s Americana is a huge touchstone for, like, contemporary horror and, like, just subverting the white suburban neighborhood and, like, showing the horror beneath it. I mean, from everything from John Waters' work to Blue Velvet to...
Yeah.
And, yeah, it kind of distanced itself from that, for better or worse. I mean, it already would have drawn conclusions to Stand By Me without those changes.
The 50s is built upon, like, repressing the horrors of World War II.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, there's so much going on in these kids' houses and at school. That was the most disturbing part to me. Like, I think in terms of horror, it's like a funhouse horror is how I would describe it. It's like, whoa, there's a new gag. Oh my god, there's a zombie. Oh my god, there's a leper. You know, and like every gag is like fun and like a haunted house, and there are all these setups, and then there's a scare, and then you go back to kind of the kids in their inner lives, which are so depressing.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Eddie's overbearing mother who forces, like...
Munchausen by proxy. That's what we were thinking of.
Oh yeah. Gypsy Rose.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's, like, for you, those of you who aren't true crime fanatics like me and Al, Munchausen by proxy is when a parent or, you know, a guardian or whatever, like, induces sickness in their child or dependent for, like, attention, and that they have to depend on them, that kind of stuff. So yeah, Eddie's mom was giving him placebos constantly and telling him he had asthma and that you can't go out and that everything's dangerous. He was so funny, though.
I will say, I think Eddie was my favorite. Yeah. Just in terms of performances of the kids.
He was so good.
And I didn't expect to like him that much because his character in the book is very grating, as I recall. But yeah, that actor was very winning, whoever he is.
Yeah.
I felt like Eddie and Richie were the best kids.
Yeah, Bill had this kind of, like, he was really bland for a hero.
A bland main character, yeah.
And he, like, his thing was he had a stutter, but, like...
Just needed to hang out with Jeffrey Rush some.
Oh my god. You see what I put up with? Okay. Anyway, he was bullied for having a stutter, and, like, Georgie died, but... Other than him being like, you guys, we gotta stick together, like, every now and then. That's all.
Well, and then blatantly ignoring his own advice, where he's like, "Hey, we have to stick together," and then he's like, "All right, hang on a second."
Well, it was like, "Oh look, Georgie's back again." I'm like, "I gotta walk down. Georgie's dead." Okay, this clown plays tricks on you, dude. Do you not understand that yet?
I will say the painting lady was not creepy until it got a hold of Stanley at the end.
On his face?
Yeah.
Yeah. Teeth, though. That was some real, face sucking that was happening.
It looks like a lamprey.
Yeah, it was really a lot of teeth. A lot of teeth on all those characters, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, Pennywise, when he gets, like... There are moments where he gets more demonic than clown, which sounds like an oxymoron, but it's possible, I guess. But and his face kind of peels backwards, and his teeth like grow by rows.
He looks like what Barbara Maitland in Beetlejuice looks like when she rips her head open.
Big ass mouth, dude, and like her eyeballs disappear.
I was gonna say 2 little eyeballs on his tongue.
That would have been cute. But I don't know. I wasn't 100% on the CGI on that. Like, I thought he was scarier without, like, that kind of blatant...
Turning into a plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, just let him be terrifying in like reality. I get like the CGI kind of took me out of it a little. Not that it's overused. I mean,
I'll say the part that I thought was scariest just featuring him was when they played with the proportions. So like when he comes out of their slide projection and he's not his normal size, but he's like 10 times bigger than you would think he was. I thought that was very effective.
They did a great job in like filming him. Cause like the focus, like he stays the same, but like the focus on the environment shifts, and it made for a really like unsteady feeling.
There was this is at the very end, but there's a moment where he like dances.
Oh, I love that moment.
His head stays stagnant in frame, but the rest of the frame kind of shifts, and it's so like
I can't describe it like why I like it, but it was just so like bombastic and creepy.
Yeah. It kind of made me feel like seasick a little bit.
Oh no.
Just like ugh. But yeah.
So how do we, I guess the question I have is, how do we feel about Beverly's character? Like, I have wildly mixed feelings about how they handled her.
Go ahead.
There were moments where I felt like the film almost let her be her own hero, and then there are other moments that are like, she's just here as a trophy.
Yeah, I got that too.
Agreed. Yeah.
I mean, I think her like home life was the best developed out of all of them, just because it was so like it's heavily implied and gestured to, or
it's
whatever.
not just implied. It feels like subtext becoming text.
Yeah, her dad sexually abuses her at home, and she doesn't have a mom, and he's always asking her like, are you doing womanly things? Are you going out with these boys? Are you still my little girl? Do these boys know that you're still my little girl? And he like touches her hair at one point, and then she cuts off all of her hair, which I thought was, but it wasn't salacious, you know? Like it was a way to hint at that happening without it becoming, you know, just over the top, really uncomfortable.
I was worried that was going to be like Ramsay Bolton level.
Yeah.
But I think I remember hearing that they cut out like that some worse scenes.
Well, I know they decided not to do the sex scene at the end.
Thank goodness.
I know. What you guys told me, I was like, I want to read it. And you guys are like, are you ready for like some 11-year-old orgy in a sewer? And I'm like, no. I don't think I'll read it then. But yeah, I'm glad they cut that out. And I mean,
I would say they did keep a little bit of like the uncomfortableness in when there's like a scene of all of the boys ogling her while
I hated that.
Tanning, like they've gone swimming, which is, there was a bit of a weird like male gazy shot of her like showing up and taking off her dress to jump into the water with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then there's a shot of her tanning, and like, I don't know, it was really on a line.
Yeah,
like I was kind of like,
it towed the line.
I feel uncomfortable, but I know they're playing this for comedic effect, but it's still kind of weird.
I feel like overall it aired on the side of like childhood innocent curiosity about sexuality stuff, but there was kind of mixed messages in the movie, especially Bill and Beverly like have a flirtation going on, but Ben, little fat kid whom I love, he's amazing.
Love Ben.
He's so sweet.
Ben got tore up in this movie.
He did. Oh my god.
We'll come back to that.
He's the one who's like doing all the research and like finding out about the history of this town.
And he's like, FYI, while y'all were having friends, I was doing research.
I mean, same. I feel that.
I had everything but the red yarn.
He really did. His whole room is like, hey, these are just all my maps and missing posters.
You want to talk about dairy? You want to talk
got
about dairy?
Boxes full of dairy.
Boxes full of Pennywise. But he has a crush on Bev, and it's super sweet. Like it's not you know, possessive or gross or anything. And he writes her like a poem, which she attributes to Bill, of course. But at the end, Beverly becomes like a damsel in distress, which I hated.
Yeah. literally woken up by true love's kiss?
Yeah, she's like that. Out of it, in a trance. She's floating because they all float apparently, literally.
I like that they. Well, we'll come back to that.
But they pull her down and they're trying to wake her up, and Ben kisses her. And
I knew as soon as he started shaking her and that she didn't wake up. I'm like, they're going for it.
I thought he would just have hugged her. And that would have been more friendship.
It would have been more clever if he had kissed her and nothing had happened, and then somebody had been like, "You're an idiot." What are you
exactly. What did you think?
Richie calls him out.
Yeah.
But as far as like love triangles, which is a thing I usually hate, I felt like this was restrained.
It was more realistic of just kids having crushes on each other and it not being a jealousy thing or an over the top like issue. But yeah, I wish she would have had more agency at some parts of the movie. Some parts she's amazing.
Oh, when she's she stabs Pennywise the first time
in the eyeball,
and
so cool.
And he turns to look at her, and like the blood is like trickling up.
Yeah,
like that was a cool little detail.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite CGI moment.
Like when he bleeds, it like goes into the ether. Like like in Crimson Peak, like Thomas Sharp or whatever.
It was like Guillermo del Toro blood.
Yeah,
ghost blood.
Ooh, that was good. But yeah, other things. There's a lot to talk about in this movie.
See, this movie looked great.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
The director of cinematography is Park Chan-wook's go-to.
Yeah, I heard he did Old Boy. Yeah, that cinematography though is beautiful. Like it felt like a real town, I guess. There were all of these landmarks that they would talk about, and they're like, "Oh, we got to go to this old house. We got to go to this well. There's the Badlands or whatever."
Yeah, it didn't feel like a clip art town.
Yeah, it did. It like definitely wasn't shot on like a backlot, you know, which is something you can tell most of the time, which I hate. But yeah, can we talk about Richie?
We can talk about Richie.
I loved him.
Mr. Motormouth.
He was so sweet
Trash
and
mouth.
just like overcompensating so hard for his self-confidence level. Just like there was a lot of your mom jokes and I'm like, wow, that's really tired, but like he is 11, so whatever. But
you can still hear middle schoolers making those today.
Oh god, I know. But he had my favorite line probably where at the end whatever. At the end, Pennywise has Bev, so they all go down into the sewer to get her, and they're tussling, they're like fighting with him, and in this fight, he's like turning into all their fears like on the spot.
That was a real. I was thinking of it's actually like that scene in Harry Potter where the boggart is like changing into all the different fears. Do you remember that from book 3? Where it was like they're not as effective in a crowd because everybody's fears are different.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of like, oh shit, did J.K. Rowling like steal that from Stephen King?
Oh my god, I think maybe. But I knew like some of the old Universal monsters were in there. So Ben, he turns into the mummy for Ben, which was a cool kind of touch. But he grabs Bill and he kind of has Bill. And he's about to, eat him or hurt him or kill him. And he's like, okay, I can get you and all your friends, or you can leave Bill with me, and I'll go back to sleep for 27 years. It's up to you. And Bill is all like, you should go, because he's like the one-dimensional martyr of the group.
Yeah, he's the noble one.
Yeah. And Richie's like, I hate you. I told you I didn't want to do this, and you're about to get me killed, and now I'm gonna have to fuck up this evil clown, okay? And he grabs a baseball bat.
That's almost a direct quote.
Yeah.
That's 100%.
And he's like, welcome to the Losers Club, asshole, and starts beating on Pennywise.
This movie, I had heard that was funny, but
it was really funny.
It was really, It
struck like the perfect like popcorn horror tone.
Yeah.
It wasn't overly scary, I think. Like Conjuring 2 made me cry. Like it wasn't that scary. It was scary. I was covering my eyes a bunch of times, but then it would go back to kind of like the heart and the funniness.
Yeah.
And
is this a good time to bring up who we saw this with? Your neighbor, your seat neighbor?
Oh my god. Yeah.
Tell us about your experience.
So, we were at one of the theater, like it was like a reclining seat theater.
Yeah,
we had reserved seats.
Fancy.
This has been like
a
month in planning.
Mm-hmm.
And I get there, and a family sits next to me, and sitting next to me, I'd say a girl who was 10 max.
Oh yeah, she looked like she had just started middle school.
She was very small, and she like brings her own blanket. And she's like, ah.
I appreciate that, though.
And I'm like, girl.
If I had known that we could have brought a blanket.
Oh, yeah.
Blanket or pillows.
So there was a literal child next to me during this movie about a child murderer. So good job. I don't know what I expected her mom to be like, having made that decision for her family. Her mom, whenever she was frightened, literally screamed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Out loud. And so something would happen, and it was, ah! Ah! Oh, whoop! I swear to Christ. And like then it would get quiet and I'm like, shh. And at one point her daughter leaned over and said, "Hey, can you stop?" This 9-year-old girl is like, "Can you be quiet, please?"
I have to be honest. Like, the first couple screams, I thought they were from you.
Girl, I am not a rude bitch in a movie theater, okay? Sorry. No, I don't play that, alright? I am scared by myself in my own head. I don't vocalize that, except to Al when I grab her hand or something.
True. That was a real Losers Club moment for us.
I know! Al was in the middle, and Wyatt grabbed one hand, and I grabbed the other hand, and she was like, alright, I guess this is happening. But that was, yeah. I loved this movie. Was not a fan of the theatrical experience, but that was no one's fault except that 40-year-old woman.
I was expecting to, I guess maybe because I've read the book, I wasn't as scared as I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the horror was more kind of like large scale. It felt more like awe in awe of this monster.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it was really inventive, I think, because horror movies usually, like, it's kind of one note, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they can only do one thing. Except maybe, like, Freddy or something, because that's in a dreamscape, so there's, like, a bunch of different really cool creative things to do. But in this, I was like, he wasn't one note. You never knew what the next scare was going to be. It wasn't repetitive.
Yeah.
Which was really cool and engaging.
Like, I was thinking about, like, why was I more scared in Annabelle Creation than this? Which, because I'll admit, like, I'm a scaredy cat when I'm watching
We went to see this movie at 4:30 in the afternoon.
Like,
Wyatt's decision.
In the dark of the theater, like, I tend to, like, get really scared.
Mm-hmm.
But the horror of, like, Annabelle Creation felt more like getting touched by, like, a live wire because it was so, like, jarring to me.
That's just a poet.
You also. You right.
You say shit like that all the time. It's funny.
You were in a poetry class more recent than I was.
Talk about Annabelle.
Anyway, Annabelle felt more like live wire and, like, coming at you, and it felt more almost like either, like, grandiose just because of, like, how much of a presence Bill Skarsgård put on screen.
Yeah. One thing, it wasn't one of those movies where there's a limited window of when the monster can strike. It is anywhere, everywhere, at any time. Like, that was the thing that scared me most, was, like, literally any minute of the movie, something bad could happen. And I don't know how those kids, like, didn't have extreme PTSD or insomnia or just, like, refused to leave their house or something, because that's what I would do.
But their houses aren't safe.
I know, but I'm just, like, I don't know how they even, like, went about their daily life, I guess, with that constantly being a presence.
I kind of wish they focused more on the horror that happened in the past. Like, they touched on the black spot and the Ironworks explosion, but the book went...
Well, yeah. I mean, I think part of it comes from moving it up to the 80s. Because a lot of the events that they talk about as historical are things that Mike, as a grown-up, has, like, documented, right? Because he grows up to become the town librarian. So he's like referencing events that have happened in the 1960s and stuff. Well, in the book, obviously, when they were kids, those things hadn't happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the whole sort of horror of the town is that they just terrible things happen, but then the whole town just sort of forgets about it.
Yeah.
They make it seem like it's not out of the ordinary. So
there was a really cool sequence. The first time it visited Ben, when he's at the library, he's doing research about.
Oh yeah.
That was probably the scariest sequence.
Did you see it in the background?
That librarian though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that was.
Yeah.
That was some real It Follows
That
nonsense.
killed me. Mm-hmm. But Ben is doing research because he just loves research. He's a little fat boy who loves New Kids on the Block and doing research, which is why he's amazing.
Would be great for grad school.
He's so
circa
sweet.
2017.
But he's looking into the town history, and it's the Ironworks Easter explosion or whatever that killed so many people. And while he's reading it, the book. He keeps like seeing the same picture on every page of the book, and then it's of a tree, and then like the last page is like a kid's head, like decapitated head,
branches,
like caught in the branches. But while that's happening, behind him, the librarian, out of focus, is just like leering and like shaking,
like turns to look at him.
Yeah, obviously like Pennywise is acting through her or whatever, and then he is lured down to like the archive stacks by singed Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Which was such a weird, creepy visual.
Yeah. These smoldering Easter eggs.
Yeah. And then the little boy whose head is gone comes.
Mm-hmm.
The body whose the head belonged to.
Speaking of Easter eggs, there's...
Oh, what a good transition!
Well, thank you.
This is such a good podcast transition for you. Good job.
A former Pennywise can be seen briefly, although it's not actually Tim Curry.
Pennywise.
No, the one in the book. It's just like a paragraph is in the background.
In a room full of clowns, if you look closely, you will see a former iteration of Pennywise.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
as a doll, right? Because I had my eyes closed, and they were like, "Did you see Tim Curry in that room?" And I'm like, "Tim Curry was in that room." I wasn't looking. I'm sorry. I was too afraid. But oh gosh, we do this all the time.
We haven't talked about the human horrors, the bullies.
Oh my god,
they were sufficiently terrifying.
They were.
Oh my god, yeah.
The scariest part of it for me. Them and Bev's dad. Mm-hmm. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
I was not expecting them to be as evil as they were.
They were like the only other kind of bullies in cinema I can think of to compare them to are the ones in Stand By Me, like Kiefer Sutherland and his gang or whatever. So like. Stephen King writes bullies as just inhuman monsters.
Yeah.
Like even Bev's bully, Greta,
or something like that.
She was terrible. Yeah. They're all just disgusting, cruel people.
Yeah.
But I know I've heard Patrick Hofstadter's name when y'all talk about the book. Did he have a bigger part in the book?
He has a section not dedicated, but like the section leading up to him being killed, he gets a point of view chapter. And the real horror in that comes from going inside the head of somebody who you find out not only has been suffocating neighborhood animals, but also killed his own baby brother.
Oh my god, okay.
And there's also some like... I think that's actually Henry, right? That has the weird, like, gay encounter with one of his henchmen.
No, it's one
or is it Patrick? I remember there's a scene where there's, like, one of them, like,
it's a
blows the other one, and then, yeah.
No, it was, the main guy, and one of his subordinates is, like, off. And he mentions that he wants to do stuff with him, and the main one like leaves.
Yeah.
And then that guy who
Henry's the main guy.
Okay, Henry leaves, and the other guy
Patrick
who likes to like suffocate things, especially in a refrigerator. opens the refrigerator and gets eaten by leeches.
Yeah.
Which I was really hoping for that scene.
Wow. Okay. So he isn't killed by zombies in the sewer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I knew that there was something more to his character. Like, I don't know how they would have explained all that stuff, but I mean, Henry was terrifying. So terrifying.
Did he kill his father in the book?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was not a lot of deviations or major deviations from the book.
From the book, well, I guess the major deviation would be that they don't go down to rescue Bev.
Mm-hmm.
They go down to kill it. She's with
That's
them.
right.
They don't have to go and save her.
I would have liked that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad they cut out the group sewer orgy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I'm glad about that too. But yeah, it's so, there's nowhere to turn for these kids, but they're still so sweet and like kind and
Ben
gentle.
Gets brutalized throughout this movie. Oh my
god, he is like Patrick and Henry almost like kill him.
Yeah,
multiple times.
They early on in the movie, Henry and his gang corner Ben, and Henry begins to carve his name into Ben's stomach.
Yeah, it like graphically.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that wound does not bleed.
Like yeah, it does.
Should. Like it bleeds, but I feel like that should be like a gusher.
Okay. Okay.
Listen, if I need like 5,000 tissues for a nosebleed, then a gaping wound on your stomach is going to need like staples.
I don't know. He has. Sure. Okay.
All I know is that some people in our theater like laughed when they started bullying him, like when they started calling Ben names.
Yeah. They laughed,
and I wanted to be like, you are the problem. Like, you are the real horror.
See, Patrick's like looking for Ben at one point, and he has his lighter out in the sewer, and he's like, "Come here, tits! I hear you." And the woman next to me was like, "Ah!" I was like,
not appropriate.
I'm like, you're white.
Your daughter deserves better.
I'm like, I blame you for all of this that's happening. One of the most haunting parts for me, when Ben was getting cut up by Henry, there's a like car drives by. Mm-hmm. They're on a road, and this like older couple he's like, help, come on, please, and they just look at him and drive on. And then in the back of the car, there's the red balloon. Mm-hmm. So I kind of took that to mean, because Pennywise kind of influences Henry to kill his dad at the end, or he at least like reveals those darker impulses. Yeah. So not to like absolve Bev's dad or like all these disgusting parents in this town, mm-hmm. but like could that be like an evil influence over the town?
I think so.
Yeah. Because in the book, I remember, I think it was discussed that Pennywise kind of just enjoys the chaos. Mm-hmm. The violence of the adults.
Yeah.
But he like his main meal are the kids, mm-hmm. but he also delights in like the violence and the blind eye of the adults.
Yeah. It really felt like they had nowhere to turn, which was probably the most hopeless part. Mm-hmm. And the scene where Bev like goes to the store and gets a box of tampons, which everyone laughed at, which I'm like, that's not funny. But she comes back to her house, and her dad like sees her with them and is, creepy about it. But then later, the next scene with her in the bathroom is the sink explodes in blood, and it goes all over the bathroom and all over her, and she's like screaming, crying in the corner of the room, covered in blood. He comes in and can't see it, which is kind of like, of course, there's like Carrie overtones, mm-hmm. like the opening of Carrie and the end of Carrie, where she's like she's menstruating, so now she's like that's externalized, I guess, mm-hmm. but also like he can't see what he's doing to her, like she's bleeding in front of him and he can't even see it because he's so like he refuses to see her as anything but like his victim.
I was for a split second I was worried about when the hair like started wrapping around her and dragging her down towards the sink, I was really hoping they wouldn't go like an Evil Dead route.
Yeah, I thought that too, especially when it wrapped around her leg, but that didn't happen.
So
good.
I will say that it's in the book, it's Stan that's like, we need to clean up your bathroom. Like, we can't just
leave. Nice.
I know, but they take that from him in the movie.
Oh,
it's like,
no,
why you
poor
gotta,
Stan.
Why you gotta hate Stan so much?
He's sweet.
Stan contributed nothing in this movie.
He tried. Okay, I felt like between him and Richie, they are how I would have reacted in these situations. Either like over the top sarcasm and like I'm out, or like I'd rather not do this and I really hate you right now.
I related to Ben in that he spent time in the library reading.
Aww.
That was a lot of my childhood.
There's such like the kids who do get personalities, like the main four, I guess. Because I feel like the main four would be Eddie, Bev, Bill, and Richie, and they're so funny and just interesting. Like there's in the background of like a scene where they're all talking, you see like Richie steal a French horn from someone and he's playing it and the guy like and the guy's like, please give me back the French horn. He's like, fuck you.
This felt like they felt like actual kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a real make or break for these kinds of movies.
And that's the thing, like Hollywood is so bad for casting like 27-year-old people to play 16-year-olds, and these are like 13-year-old kids playing 13-year-old kids, which I think that's kind of a trend Stranger Things started. But I'm very glad it did.
Yeah.
Because it's really sweet and not sexualized in a way that's like when it's sexualized, you know it's bad most of the time, other than like them ogling at Bev or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely didn't like them ogling her, but I felt like if they're going to show the horror of something like what Bev is going through, I think they handled that well, especially given a child actor.
Yeah, she was great. I have never seen most of these kids before, except. Well, you don't want to talk about Book of Henry?
Jesus Christ, no.
He was in 2 horror films this year. Jaden, what's his name?
Lieberhard, or whatever. The main kid, Bill, was in The Book of Henry, which is a terrible, terrible, hilariously bad Colin Trevorrow movie. You know how we feel about Colin Trevorrow.
We have not been shy about our stance.
Apparently, neither have a lot of people because he got fired from Star Wars. Thank God. But yeah, other things about the movie you want to talk about?
Pennywise drooled so much.
I think it was because of the teeth.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
He's hungry. He wakes up to eat.
Yeah. Like that little detail added so much creepiness to him for me.
I was just it was kind of distracting because I was trying to think like, oh, that must have been so hard to act with like somebody like
teeth.
Dripping drool on your mouth.
Well, like I feel like it might
have
have
just production assistant whose job it is to just be like, okay, I gotta give you some more
That's
drool.
really funny because I thought it might just have happened with the fake teeth.
Maybe
like it like held his bottom lip open so much.
I don't know.
That's cool too, though. I like. God, I wish I had that job.
Pennywise was just constantly like, just drooling everywhere over these kids.
Well, and I mentioned this to you guys earlier. The director Andre Muschietti came out to say that he had originally wanted Pennywise's eyes to go in 2 different directions, really subtly. And he was going to do it with CGI, and Bill Skarsgård was like, I can do that. And he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and he does.
And he does. It's very slight. It's not like one is looking to the left and one is looking to the right. They're just like a little bit off.
Since you told me that, I just assumed he did all the weird shit with the eyes that happens in that movie. I was like, oh, isn't that crazy that he can just roll his eyes back on command? Like
they can turn like a bright yellow and glow in the dark and stuff.
Can you... Let's think about the darkest scenario for what could have been this movie.
Okay.
Wow.
Do we have to?
The cast has just been announced for the 2017 version of It. Cast as Pennywise, Jared Leto.
You just, I hate you. Bev would be Bella Thorne.
Who?
She's like a early 20s former Disney person.
Or like Selena Gomez.
Only wears like bras and has like really gross dyed hair, and I don't like her at all. But that would have been the worst Bev.
Like the whole time while thinking, I'm like, again, I'll always say it. Bill Skarsgård did a great job, and I feel like
no one's asking you to not say it.
I'll always say it. Listen,
again, I mean,
I've gone on the record.
Quit the roasting. Okay?
I've gone on the record as of 40 minutes ago.
Holy shit!
But
oh my god,
like
we
this
love
movie,
each other.
This movie could have easily been just like had the carpet pulled out from under.
It could have been terrible. Like especially having such like a beloved book. And I don't know if the miniseries is beloved, like outside horror movie circles, but it's iconic.
Yeah.
You know?
Like a lot of kids grew up watching the It miniseries.
I grew up afraid of the VHS cover at my grandmother's house.
I will say I don't want to make the whole thing about like stuff in the book versus stuff in the movie.
Go ahead.
But one thing that I did kind of miss was that, like, and granted, this is something that when your book is 1,000 pages long, you have enough time to develop these little running threads. But like throughout each of the sort of chapters that you spend with the various kids, they have like these sort of talents that eventually get weaponized in this sewer fight.
They do.
So like Ben ultimately will grow up to be an architect.
Yeah.
And so he has this like skill, and he makes these like silver bullets. He melts down coins to make silver bullets. And then Richie there's like a real brief thing of this in the film where he does impressions that then ultimately is used, like, are all these abilities that they are like the kids are sort of mocked for in their everyday life that then ultimately like becomes things that they draw upon to be strong and unafraid.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a little more interesting than just like, here's a pipe.
Yeah.
Like, or like, you know, so that
here's a candlestick.
That was something I kind of missed.
That's really interesting. I like that. Yeah, I thought the message was good. Like overall, like it's not like super heavy-handed, but it's, you know, the things that we're afraid of we can overcome. Like you find your strength in your friends, and your like your friends don't have, like your family doesn't have to necessarily be your support system, and the things that, you know, people make fun of you for can be your strengths.
I liked that they were like, if you like, parents usually in movies are like, you know, trust the parents. But, you know, parents aren't always healthy. Some parents are very toxic. Like Eddie's relationship with his mom, and where he rejects his mom. I thought that was a great scene.
Oh, definitely. And it gave him like some real agency and stakes to his story. Mike had kind of a tragic backstory with his parents. Like his parents were killed in a fire, which I assumed they were killed at the black spot. That could have been an easy put together, but that didn't happen. 2 separate fires for 2 separate African American like people being killed in fires. But he just kind of is like, they're like, "What about you, Mike? How are you?" And he's like, "My parents died in a fire." He just
like
he
gets that little speech,
story,
and then like the movie like moves on from
there. Yeah. I'm like,
yeah, I would like to see, because it really seemed like they were setting him up for more, because he's the first kid that we see.
Yeah.
After Georgie gets eaten.
Yeah.
Do you hear the lambs, Mike?
Yeah, there's like a scene with him and his grandpa. I assume it's his grandfather. But that kind of goes nowhere, so I would hope that there are like at least some deleted scenes or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's set up that he has the bolt gun, I guess, but there was a big, like, kind of heavy moment where his grandpa is like, "You got to make a choice. Are you going to be out here with me, or are you going to be in there with the sheep?" and you can only someone will make that choice for you, and you won't even realize. And then they cut from the sheep going into the chute to all of the school kids coming out of the classroom, and I'm like, what's that? What are you saying? People who go to public school are sheep. Probably not, but
Yeah. I hope there's an expanded edition when it comes out.
A 7-hour one, because this movie's 2.5 hours long.
It felt short. It moves along
it
very
moves
well.
really well. I did feel in pacing at the beginning, it was kind of just all right, this kid gets an encounter, this kid gets one, this kid get one, and then to the point where they're going in this house, and Richie's I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I haven't had my encounter yet. I'm oh, someone's about to meet.
Yeah, it felt like when they finally figure out his lair and go into the house, that was the real moment where the movie came together for me.
It was disparate before then, a little bit. Other than the main 4 kids, Stan, Richie, Eddie, and Bill. The 4 white skinny boys with brown hair. One of whom is Jewish. That's the only other way to separate them. I thought the score was amazing.
Yeah, it was a good score.
I can't wait to play that for my students while they hate me for playing film scores.
Are you going to play the out-of-tune clown music?
Oh,
that
shit.
Frequency?
It's terrifying.
I asked my students, that was my taking roll question last week, what their favorite score or soundtrack was. A lot of Disney fans.
Ew.
A couple John Williams people, and I was you really listen to that though? Or is that just a composer that you can name?
My favorite is the score to the People's Court. No, wait.
There were 3 different boys that said Pulp Fiction, and I was kind of feel like you're all lying.
Yeah.
But okay.
Who sings "Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon"? No, it was just a really well-made movie.
It was.
I'll say there were a little clunky lines of dialogue where it seems like they.
What do you mean?
They needed to spell things out, the part where he has Bill in his clutches, and he's I don't know. It was something where it really it was just a half a sentence too long, as he's basically okay, y'all can all stay, or you can leave him and he'll stay, and that would have been enough. But then he goes, he'll stay here with me, and I will feast on his fear or whatever. Yeah, and it's kind of I got it. We're
and I will feast on his flesh and his fear. Yeah, I think was it, and I'm ooh, someone has a flair for the dramatic.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell from your makeup.
The makeup, I thought it was really well done, especially since you could see scales underneath the makeup.
Yeah, it was very cracky and dry and old timey. I liked how it wasn't the Pennywise from Tim Curry costume, which is a John Wayne Gacy clown. This is a Victorian clown with a bunch of ruffles, and it's terrifying. One kind of silly thing, in one of the old Derry lithographs or whatever, pen and ink drawings, there's a clown in the back.
Yeah,
it's him.
I know. Yeah, I know.
There was an extreme close-up. We know that it was supposed
yes, to be. But it's a bunch of normal men, and then behind one shoulder, it's and I'm have people not figured out that this is a demonic clown for the past 300 years? He's right there. Did he pose for that? What's going on?
I like that they kind of gave a Roanoke beginning to the town. I don't remember that from the book.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the whole settlement that vanished or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, and eventually I guess this is sort of leading us towards the future, but the book gets cosmic. Mm-hmm. Its true form is something that nobody can look upon without going insane. Yeah, so obviously it's well, how are you going to do that then? Because it was a spider. Yeah. But not really a spider. It was more than a spider.
I feel like they kind of hinted at the cosmic horror when what he shows Beverly.
Yeah, like the ghost lights, right? That's what they're called.
The dead lights.
Dead lights. Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
And she goes like her eyes go white and she like starts floating.
Yeah, I thought the lair was really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was spidery, without being a spider, because all of the people, like, I guess they were floating. It looked to me like they were suspended.
I thought they were all webs too.
Initially, so
The mountain of toys.
And like float sim and jet sim that just filtered down from the town, and he made it his lair. Like that felt really original and like a level of creativity you don't really see in horror.
He's like a scavenger. It like underlines that aspect of him. Like he's just taking what he can get from the kids he can lure away.
Like it felt like it was at the bottom of Derry. Yeah, it did a great job with that.
Well, no, they look up, and it's when Ben is getting chased, he goes down by that riverbed. There's like a big.
It's a standpipe.
Yeah. Okay. It's because up at the top it was that kind of metal grate at the top of that.
That's
so
right.
They show it earlier in the movie that's like down by the river.
Okay.
Or that's what I thought.
That makes sense.
So. Yeah, I love Richie just reaches into the giant pile of toys, pulls out a baseball.
All right.
The real MVP.
Guess I'm killing this clown.
Yeah. Another favorite line. Poor Eddie breaks his arm.
Oh my god! The audience in unison gagged.
It is very badly broken. It is surely broken. And they all come up to him to help him after they kind of stab Pennywise, and he retreats back into the well or whatever, and Eddie's screaming and freaking out, and Richie's always telling him what to do. So he's like, "Okay, I'm just gonna pop your arm back in place." He's like, "If you fucking touch my arm, I will freak out on you." Eddie was the MVP child actor.
Meanwhile, while everyone's focusing on Eddie's broken hand,
yes,
Ben has got his stomach tore open again.
It was not even healed from the last time.
No, I'm surprised intestines didn't slip out of either wound that he received.
He gets sliced open in the tummy a lot, which is really sad.
Yeah. What did he say? He's leaking hamburger helper.
That was an awful and great line.
Oh, Richie. So do you guys? We were talking about it, and we're thinking who should be cast for the adult version, set in present day, I guess, because no one's been cast yet, as far as I know.
Nothing's been even.
I mean,
they even announced a date?
No.
Yeah,
that's so weird. I don't know. I expected it to be.
I expect Bill Skarsgård to be back.
I have heard that they're going to fill in some of Pennywise's backstory.
Okay, I mean.
That, he's a Cthulhu-esque.
I was going to say, he came from the stars.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, yeah. But I hope they mean, in Derry and how he was involved in,
that would be cool.
Explosion and the fire and all that stuff.
See, what we need to bring back is, cool things like Curse of the Blair Witch. That documentary that they aired.
Enlighten us.
They aired a documentary to promote Blair Witch Project. It was a fake documentary, obviously, called Curse of the Blair Witch.
Oh, so It
was on the History Channel and the Sci-Fi Channel.
Holy shit.
So viral marketing.
Yes.
Let's give
That's what they need.
The story of Derry, the first settlers.
Ken Burns style Derry documentary.
Yes, and it's narrated by Ben Haskam. An adult Ben.
Dear Diary.
1801.
What? Winter's been cool this year.
There's a clown outside my cabin. I don't like
I fear the end is near.
No, Curse of the Blair Witch is on YouTube for the record.
Oh,
so
yo.
You should watch it.
Okay, if you can't tell, that's Al's shit. So who do you get? We've already talked about this a little bit, but we've had some more time to think about it. Who would be cast as the adults of the kids?
Well, initially, I think that whoever the girl is that plays Bev looks like a lost Olsen sister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just from a looks standpoint, if Elizabeth Olsen wanted to dye her hair red, that would be like perfect facial match.
Yeah.
But a lot of the sort of like male choices that we were throwing out, they could not really play alongside Elizabeth Olsen. It's like, hey, we were all kids together at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, she's even younger than Mary-Kate and Ashley, so.
Yeah. So we might have to rethink that.
Why I thought Jessica Chastain, but I don't know. She seems too severe for Bev to me, because like Bev in this is very like soft and, you know, round face and.
I feel like Jessica Chastain, she's a great actress.
I know
you're not arguing that, but I feel like she could play an older Bev quite well.
See, my compromise was that she should play Audra, who is Bill's wife, who's a movie star who is explicitly said to look basically like Bev, with the implication that Bill married her because he looked like his first love.
What about like Christina Hendricks?
Maybe, I don't know.
I'd be okay
I mean,
with that.
she has a different body type, but you know, if Ben can lose weight.
Yeah, the only one that canonically is supposed to get hotter is Ben.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So who did we say?
Patrick Wilson.
Patrick Wilson for Ben.
Yeah, I'm like 100% on that. I think that's great.
You're welcome for that.
You said Patrick Wilson should be Bill, and I'm like,
Bill grows up to be a
But I put Patrick Wilson out there, so I'll take credit.
Okay.
But I still feel like Richie should be Adam Driver.
Adam Driver's not that old, first of all.
Listen, he's 35. I feel like they could age him up a little.
Okay.
Sterling K. Brown was
Sterling K. Brown for Mike.
That'd be great.
That was good. Really good.
Thank you. Who else?
You said Adam Driver for Richie?
Richie or Eddie.
I would see him more as Richie than Eddie.
I feel like Eddie could be like a Milo Ventimiglia.
Maybe. I don't know. Milo's he seems kind of built. Like, I think he's
Without,
supposed
like,
to be frail. He's supposed to continue to be frail.
Okay. What's his name? Stan, like, Ben Stiller or something like that?
Maybe.
If he was in the second one.
Nathan Fielder.
Shut up! Yeah, I suggested Nathan Fielder for at least one of them.
I mean, Nathan Fielder would make an alright Eddie. Like, just in terms of physicality.
Also, he's, like, graying already. He's, like,
go.
a very young man with a lot of gray hair, Nathan Fielder. Also, he can sing Born to Die. Like,
but, I mean, also, maybe they should follow the footsteps of what they did this time and cast mostly unknown people.
Yeah.
That would be kind of nice.
That'd be really cool. Not Bella Thorne, though.
Not Bella, yeah.
They should, yeah.
I love that little Finn boy. I love him so much. He does so good. There was a moment when they were going swimming. I'm like, this is a bunch of child boys in their little tighty whities, like on the edge of a cliff. I'm like, this is not a teen movie this is not Teen Wolf.
No.
They are frail little babies.
Oh yeah.
With who are very pale.
They live in Maine.
I know, but I'm just like, you are children. I love this. I love that you're children and you don't have an 8-pack and it's not weird, okay?
It was a very gorgeous looking summer on film.
Oh yeah.
When they come back, I kind of want to see it in like winter.
Or I want to see it in autumn.
Yeah.
That'd be good. Well, does it reemerge in the summer?
Isn't it supposed to be like a year-long thing?
It's 27 years.
Yeah. But he was there in October the year before to get Georgie.
That's right.
So was
that
it
was
like
a really
October
beautiful
to October?
rainstorm?
Oh yeah, it was lovely. Also, that cat saw everything.
That cat was adorable.
There's a cat that like watches Georgie like talking into the sewer.
What if it was the same cat that Henry liked then?
No. No. Also, yeah, Henry that's when you stop being friends with somebody, bro. They ask you to pick up a stray cat and hold it while they shoot it with the gun. No.
Nope. The cat lives. Spoiler.
Thank God. No, not much else does. That was one comfort to me. Like, if I didn't know that I knew all the kids were going to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew they would come back. But if I didn't know that, I think I would have been a lot more freaked out.
I was wondering if they were going to kill a main kid, just for the sake of like, caught you off guard, book readers. Like I thought,
it would have been Stan.
I legitimately thought Stan was going to die. Well, his head was down that thing's throat.
I thought that was when he would die.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Stan's dead.
Oh, he's gone.
But then he just like wakes up and he's like,
which I would have been the most inexplicable set of scars for the rest of his life.
Oh, just like around his face? Yeah.
You seem to have teeth marks all around your head.
Scary. I did think it was really ballsy what they did with Georgie at the end.
Oh yeah, they held it long enough that I thought.
Mm-hmm. So at the very end, Bill is down in the sewers. Oh god, he is constant. I'm like, forget your brother, dude. I know, like, you were very close to him and he was a child and he's dead now, but like, constantly, like, the little ghost Georgie is like
luring
Bill like into danger. I'm like, can you not tell? You're constantly telling everyone else that like it's not real and it's just tricking you. Like, listen, boy.
Yeah.
But so Ghost Georgie is there, and he's not in the rain jacket. He's in like the sweater he was wearing, and his arm is gone. So that's like how he would look still if he had survived. So he talks to Bill, and he's like, Bill, I want to go home. I miss you so much. Why did you leave me down here? And it's like super emotional, and Bill, of course, is like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. Mom and Dad, they love you so much. And it's like this, reunion moment. He's like, take me home, Bill, please. And so he like kind of gets closer to him, and I thought they were gonna hug, and I'm like, bitch, you know that is that clown. And Bill goes, I'm sorry, but you're not Georgie. And he shoots him in the forehead with a bolt gun used to kill livestock.
Full on Antoine Chigurh moment.
This kid is like 5 years old. We see a 5-year-old get
fall over. First
dead.
of all, we saw that 5-year-old at the very beginning get his arm bitten off.
Yeah, there's
and
a lot of violence
along the ground without an arm.
Mm-hmm. And so Georgie like falls back, and you think like, oh shit, that was the real Georgie.
They held it, and I'm like, are they going there?
I was like, Bill killed his brother he's been searching for. But no, and then Georgie starts like,
the thing
undulating and convulsing and becomes Pennywise. So he was right, of course.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I'm done.
Okay.
I'm out of things to say.
That was scarring to me.
Do you have any more casting for the adults, or did we resolve everything?
Adam Driver and Patrick Wilson and Jessica Chastain were my picks.
All right. I think Ben Stiller for Stan.
Okay. I mean, he could be like, spoiler alert, Stan dies before he even makes it back. He kills himself before he goes back to Derry. So
well, at least
Ben Stiller would only have to be on set for like a day.
Cash that check.
Yeah. Regrow that Royal Tenenbaum's hair.
Yeah. Aw. One thing I didn't like a lot. Well, I didn't mean that to say I really hated it, but I didn't like it. Okay, anyway.
Liked it less than other things.
I liked it less than other things, yes. The very end, the end shot is Bev is moving away, and Bill lets her go. And I'm like, sweet, they're letting this be resolved without, like, a forced kiss.
Nah.
Nope.
Nope.
Like,
he runs back to her, and they kiss, like little baby kisses, because they're children, which I didn't like that at all. Like, let Bev not have to kiss a boy. And, so I really didn't like that.
I was okay with it.
But I was really cool with when she touched his face, they had just done a blood pact, so she, like, smeared blood all over his face. Which, I don't know, I'm like, symbolism of what? I'm not sure yet. I gotta think about it.
I kind of wish there was a lingering shot of dread.
Yeah, I guess the only sort of thing is that, it says chapter 1 at the end, which lets everybody who didn't already know that it's going to continue. But there isn't really, like, a hook. Sequel hook.
Like, half the audience was like, oh.
Very breathy.
And the other half is like, yes. There's going to be another one. Yeah, I half expected some, like, carry out the grave.
I mean, it would have been easy enough for them to just like have a little balloon float in at the very end, like have a little balloon pop up in the corner. That would have scared me.
Or like go back down into his lair and there would be like the Jack in the Box and it just like cranks to the point.
I hate that you're saying this because it's scaring me. I liked that it was a good ending, and it was like, and peace fell over the land for the next 27 years or whatever. Like, let them have a moment.
It was a happy ending, but that's not how the book is. Wait, or it's not just how things are, because they all know that he's coming back. Like, they're like,
I don't think they know he's coming back. They said if he comes back, this is our blood pact or whatever.
Which, like, is it still a blood pact if they only cut one hand?
And
then they all hold hands in a circle. So there's one side of you that's not.
Eddie was concerned about AIDS.
Yeah.
So he was concerned about everything.
Yeah.
But Eddie was concerned about AIDS, so he probably was like,
"Come on,
bleed on my own."
Safe blood packs. Y'all.
Yeah. That's always freaked me out too. I'm like, those bloodborne pathogens in there.
I hate when people in movies like need to do blood pact. They always go for their hands.
Yeah, they always go like across all of these.
Like, do you know how often things touch your palm?
Yeah.
Like,
there's so many nerve endings.
Yeah, that's going to hurt for.
And it's not a little cut. It's not like on the top of the thumb or whatever. It's like across your whole ass palm, and then you're just slathering it on each other. Gross.
Gross. Yeah.
Eddie was right about everything. Okay. That was shit water. He was right. Like,
some gross ass sewers.
Yeah, that disturbed me.
He was. I will say, I guess my main concern about them moving it from the 50s to the 80s means that the second version will be basically in present day.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how I feel about
that. Siri, locate sewers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, is it gonna be a thing where it's like the new Blair Witch, where they're like, oh, cool, we have all of our phones and GPS, except they don't work anymore? Or are they just gonna, like, I don't know. Are they gonna do some, like, what was that trailer that we saw? Friend request.
Oh my
Pennywise friend request.
Oh,
I'm so upset.
There was some
pretty good movie, actually.
Oh, that was pretty good. But this, yeah.
Friend request,
we saw some awful horror movie trailers.
Excuse me. Happy Death Day looks amazing. Alright?
Groundhog's Day, but with death.
But with dying.
Oh, with sorority girls.
I love it. And, like, the birthday cake logo, I loved it. It was great. But, yeah, my thing, I doubt they'd have to lean so far into, like, the new tech as they did with Blair Witch, because that was kind of dependent on tech. Yeah. In this one, it would probably be more like getting the old gang back together and like exploring the sewers or whatever, or locating him.
Bill created an event. Will you RSVP?
Stop! Bill sends out a mass email and someone hits reply all.
If you don't think that these kids have a Google chat going on.
Oh my god. What would their Facebook Messenger group be called?
Oh god. The Losers Club.
Yes! Yes! Oh my god. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Does Richie die?
In the as a grown up? No, he doesn't.
Yes.
It's good to go.
Who all dies as a grown up?
Eddie dies.
No. Nathan Fielder.
I forgot that Eddie died.
Yeah, he dies. Stan dies. I think everybody else lives.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Mike. Does Mike get like hurt?
Yeah.
Mike gets injured, but he lives.
Okay.
So there's less of him.
Yeah, because he's like in the hospital or something.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Henry Bowers lives.
No! See, that's the thing. Henry Bowers falls down a fucking well.
Like a bottomless well.
You don't even hear him like a crash or a... You know? That's a breaking of
He got that Disney villain death, so he can come back.
See, I just killed my dad!
That's why I would like to see more, like, aftermath shots. Like them recovering him from the house. Or, like, the kids going to...
Yeah! That's one thing. Because, even after the blood pact, before they're, saying goodbye or whatever, seeing all the parents finding the bodies of these kids, are the losers having to be getting questioned.
The body of Bev's dad?
Bev's dad, I didn't know if he died. I didn't think he died.
He wasn't dead.
But yeah, so she goes and lives with her mom. The police chief is dead. Like, this town is in shambles. I want to see it.
I wonder how they're going to do the state of modern Derry. Like, is it going to be like a town past its heyday, or still like kind of surviving on?
I feel like probably like past its prime.
It's going to be really sad for Mike living in a husk town.
I don't know. Final thoughts.
Well, this was really good. It wasn't perfect, but I fully endorse seeing it in a theater just for the theatrical horror.
Oh yeah. I loved it. I thought it wasn't, the best horror movie I've ever seen, and it's not, the best drama I've ever seen, but it's like a perfect mix of the two.
It's a great popcorn horror.
Yeah, it's so accessible, and it hits on nostalgia, and the kids are genuinely talented and sweet, and I want to hang out with them. So it hit every note for me. Whether or not it was like extremely scary, not really, but yeah, I loved it. I'd give it, B+, A-.
Yeah, I definitely would recommend seeing it in a theater. It's beautiful. I enjoyed pretty much all of the kid actors that were given something to do. I feel like some of the kids were shafted a little bit.
Al is gonna do the justice for Stan.
Stan and Mike, I felt like they were talented kids that didn't really have as much to do, but Eddie is the real MVP.
Oh god, I need to see what he's in.
That actor,
he's a good kid.
Yeah,
the new Jacob Tremblay.
Oh man,
much funnier than Jacob Tremblay. Jacob Tremblay doesn't say like "fuck you, Richie" in his.
Yeah. Richie and Eddie had some choice lines.
They were my favorites. I love them so much. Okay, yeah. So those are our thoughts on it. Are we wanting to do our personal picks now?
I think so.
Okay.
What do you have for us, Al?
Yeah, the guest goes first.
Okay. Is it rude to recommend other podcasts?
No. Absolutely it is. Like, get out. You're gonna be cut from this. Actually, like we're gonna cut around you.
Okay.
Like Stan.
Well. Too soon.
I'm sorry.
Too soon. Okay, I will go ahead and plug 2 horror-related podcasts that I enjoy. One of which is called Sound of Fear, and it's all about horror movie scores.
Ooh!
It's written and narrated by a married British couple. So
that sounds very listenable.
So yeah, they're pleasant to listen to, just like them talking, but I appreciate they do a pretty good job of highlighting like lesser known scores, and particularly they go into a lot of detail about like sequels and stuff.
Ooh,
so yeah,
okay.
like movie like they'll sort of talk about like canonical stuff, but then they'll be like, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 also has a great score. Let's listen to some of that. Like,
I'm sorry, we have a checkered history with Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
No, we don't. We just flat out hate it.
That's really funny though.
Well, maybe it wasn't Nightmare on Elm Street 2. But...
No, I love that was your like example. Though.
And then they're currently in the middle of doing sort of this cycle of sci-fi horror. So they had a whole thing on the Godzilla score.
What?
From 1954.
Okay.
Yes.
I was worried you were going to say the Roland Emmerich botched thing.
No.
Featuring Puff Daddy.
So yeah, that's one. And then the other one that I'll mention is a horror comedy podcast called My Neighbors Are Dead.
Which is super funny.
Yo! This is awesome. I need to listen to both of these.
It's a improv comedy thing. All of their episodes are pretty short, like 20 minutes or less. And it's basically a host, interviewing people who are adjacent to horror movie plots. So, like, they interviewed the next door neighbors of Poltergeist.
Oh my god, that sounds
Or like
so
a
funny.
guy who goes to Amity Island to propose to his girlfriend the weekend of Jaws.
Oh my, that sounds right up my alley.
They had one with the older siblings of the twin girls from The Shining.
They were always weird.
I particularly liked the episode for The Witch, where the guy presented the events of The Witch as like a reenactment.
Yeah, and so it all took place
tourist trap
in a living history
and
village.
and the family was just those that took it too seriously.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
So yeah, those are my 2 picks.
Sweet.
Find them on wherever you subscribe to
Stitcher
podcasts.
Premium. How?
Yep.
What was the name of the first one?
The Sound of Fear.
Do they do Alien?
Yeah.
Oh, good, because I have lots of feelings about the Alien score.
Yep.
What a stereotypical Wyatt sentence.
I mean, where's the lie?
Boom, roasted.
That's not really roasted.
Shut up. Okay, my personal pick, Wynonna Earp. What? What? Why are you laughing at me?
Nothing. Just from your description of it as the lesbian answer to Supernatural.
Excuse me.
Did you make that up? Did you ever say that?
I've never said that. Okay.
That's how you sold it.
What the hell?
First of all,
Get away from me.
I don't know that Lynn would ever describe something as the lesbian version of anything as like a selling point. I don't know.
I
She
mean,
would.
I do love lesbians, but like, I would never compare something to Supernatural as a selling point. Okay.
The super hulocs can come for us.
Oh my god, I'm like physically
you
convulsing.
conjured them.
Yeah, I hate you.
I'm not scared.
Anyway, can I get my personal?
Please continue.
Okay, Wynonna Earp. It's on Netflix and Sci-Fi, and they just finished the 2nd season, and they're getting a 3rd. It is the story of Wynonna, who is the great-granddaughter of Wyatt Earp, and her family is cursed, and all of the outlaws that he put down in his day as sheriff return every few years as revenants, and only his pistol can put them down and send them back to hell. It's very silly. It's very Canadian.
Okay.
Doc Holliday.
I will say that is kind of a supernatural thing.
Oh,
like
I know.
Magic gun and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost as if I made a correct point.
It's very Buffy meets Supernatural meets Canada meets Tombstone. Doc Holliday's amazing. He's immortal, and he's been living at the bottom of a well. He talks.
Is it Val Kilmer?
No.
That's unfortunate.
But that's my parents' favorite movie,
It's a
and they
great
always
movie.
say, "I'll be your Huckleberry."
I can't wait to meet your parents.
Oh my god, Mom, he wants to meet you really bad.
I will quote Tombstone with you.
Okay. It's a really good show. Her sister Waverly is hilarious and sweet, and there is a really great lesbian couple on it who's very sweet, and neither of them die. And it's super cool representation, and they're very vocal about being, conscious of representation. It's a really fun show. I think in season 2, Wynonna gets pregnant, and it does not impede her ability to slay demons at all. And so they just wrote that into the show when the main actress got pregnant. But yeah, it's light, it's fun, it's stupid, but it's really fun, like genuine, silly, supernatural Western entertainment. Wyatt?
Well, I don't have a recommendation so much as something I'm excited to start.
He does this sometimes. He's like, I don't have one, and then leaves me to do it.
Let's see. John McGinley, the guy who played Dr. Cox in Scrubs.
I know who John McGinley
is. He's in a show. Was it like Stan vs. Evil?
Yes.
And it looks very much kind of like a knockoff Ash vs. Evil Dead. But I really like John McGinley, especially as Dr. Cox, and it looks like Dr. Cox fighting demons. So I'm excited to see how it is. It just looks like dumb fun.
We love our dumb fun.
We do.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of upcoming stuff, my mom just got Shudder. So
Ooh.
she's like, I got Shudder. Here's the password. So yeah, my mom's really cool, and
Mom's
she
the MVP.
orders horror movie streaming services now, and pays for them for us. So, yeah.
Bless.
We're going to be watching a bunch of Shudder stuff just in the future.
Yeah, we have some exciting episodes coming.
Yeah, watch out for October. It's going to be lit.
Just in general.
Just in
Not
general,
even,
man.
Not even has to do with this
October
podcast.
is going to be amazing this year.
Just watch out for it. Beware, it's coming.
You don't know. It's right around the corner.
Like, most of our October shows, well, I think half are going to be, like, children's entertainment.
Yeah, half. Like, all 4 episodes are, like, kind of double features.
Yeah, double episodes. So it's going to be really great. I'm not sure what we're doing next week. I may change my mind now that we have Shudder.
Musical.
Oh, yeah, Bang Bang Baby. Yes. Okay, we do need to watch that. Okay. But, yeah. So watch out. This has been really fun. Wyatt and I have been lucky to have Al here. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. This has been, months in the making.
We've been
and it's finally here.
Like, every episode of the podcast to date, I think we've mentioned it.
We'd be like, you ready for it?
Scottie Pippen comes in.
Stop, CNC Music Factory.
The All Monsters burst through the window.
The Monstars. The All Monsters. When was the last time you saw Space Jam, bro?
You know, probably not since elementary.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for listening. We will be back next week.
Go see it. See it in theaters.
Go
support it.
Please, God. See you soon.
Love
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
He behaved like a man demented, obsessed, utterly lost.